Workforces, a workforce fit for the future session. I think that's the first time I've ever used its full name. It's a bit of a mouthful. So before we get started, I'm just going to quickly run through some housekeeping rules, and then I'll give you a bit of background on the session and then hand over to our wonderful speakers. So when you're not speaking, please can you ensure your camera's off and your microphone is muted to avoid background noise during the session. And we do have some time built in for Q&A at the end of the session. So if you do want to ask any questions, you can either wait till the end and show us your lovely faces and ask the question, or just pop them in the chat and we can pick those up at the end of the session. We will be recording this session to share with delegates afterwards. Plug for the OPSS YouTube channel, there is one. A lot of our resources go up on there, so we've got all the recordings from our previous Week of Wonder, as well as primary authority case studies, some Better Business for All resources. So please when you're asking questions, or if you're posting the chat, because it will be on that video. If for any reason your internet or laptop connection fails, please note down the dial-in details so that you can call back into the meeting. These can be found in the meeting details option above, which if you click the three dots, that's where you can find it, and it will be posted in the chat box. And please do use the chat function during the session for any thoughts, comments and questions, and as I said, we'll respond to those at the end of the session. Fine. And then you can also use the raise your hand function to ask any questions. So Caroline's going to pop that all in the chat, so if you do need to go back and about asking questions and stuff, it'll all be in there. So the purpose of today's session, just realised that I'm sharing my own slides, so I was patiently waiting for the slides to come up, and I'm the one that's supposed to be sharing them, so just bear with me a second. There we go. I'm hoping you can all see those slides now. So the purpose of this session today is to talk about future workforces and different approaches that local authority regulatory services are currently using to ensure the number of officers is maintained, that officer competence is maintained, and that you've got the relevant expertise. So before I hand over to our speakers, I just wanted to flag a piece of work that we currently have two of our lovely contractors starting. They are compiling a report, a good practice guide. I'm not quite sure what we're going to call it. A report sounds very formal. But they are going to be spending the next few weeks talking to local authority regulatory services about the collaborative approaches that they are using or that they are thinking would work well to create a best practice guide, good practice guide that other local authorities can pick up and implement in full in their authorities or parts of it that they like. And so if you do know of anything going on in your region or in your authority that you think is helping resource local authorities, please do contact Janet Russell or Jane Healy. I'm sure many of you know, but they'll probably chase you down if you don't contact them anyway. But their contacts are on this slide if you've got anything you want to share, and they'll be in touch if not. So we've got four speakers today. We've got Richard Strawson to talk about BASP or BASP, depending on where you're from in the country. We've got Lisa talking about the 5+1 training, Nick Reddrop from the Great Manchester Centre of Excellence, and Paul Brooks from Chelmsford to talk about apprenticeships. Unfortunately, we have had a couple of speakers drop out. So Jen from West Suffolk was coming to talk about tactical tasking and unfortunately hasn't been able to, but she has produced a briefing note that I will circulate with you all after this meeting, and she's happy to answer any questions that you have. And then there was also Jonathan Toy from Warwickshire, who was going to share some information on their shared intel officer, but again, Janet and Jane will pick that up, so that information will be coming soon. So I think that's kind of the context and the background. So I'm just going to hand straight over to Richard now, and he's going to tell you about BASP.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola, and morning, everybody. Yes, so I'm Richard Strawson. I'm the Trading Standards Team Manager for East Sussex County Council, and I'm here to talk to you this morning about an initiative that we run in partnership with some other local authorities called BASP or BASP, Business Advice and Support Partnership. We partnered a number of years ago with Slough Borough Council, Hampshire County Council, Kent County Council and ourselves. What we were doing was recognising that there was a ready market out there for professional business advice and support around the likes of either ad hoc supporting businesses or primary authority arrangements. And what we wanted to provide was a facility where it was easy for businesses, particularly around the southeast, to get professional advice from a range of specialist officers, but it also recognised that actually the problems quite often with individual authorities is that we don't necessarily have all the expertise in-house, and therefore actually sharing that resource across the authorities, producing one single branded offer for businesses, did two things. It gave businesses confidence in the organisation that there was enough capacity to deal with their needs. It gave a very public facing professional branding to our business advice offer, and at the same time it enabled us as authorities to really allocate work according to where the capacity was in whatever authority. And really marketing under one name meant that it didn't really matter which authority provided the work. The importance was that there was a seamless customer journey for the business and also professional advice at the end of that. So I just want to share with you, hopefully, Nicola, this will work. This is a brief video of our launch event in 2018. So next slide, click on the video, see how we get on.
Bear with me. So I've got Khadija on backup just in case this all goes wrong.
Sorry to test you, sir.
I'm hoping if there's no audio, let me know.
Yeah, so there's no audio on that.
That would be. Khadija, I might need you to come and save the day.
Just send me the link.
Oh, I didn't click the include computer sound. This so you know that it's live. Right, let's try again.
Thanks, that's great. Thanks, Nicole. So, yeah, just as that showed, what we wanted to portray was a professional image and a comprehensive service. So being a county authority, typically we don't have environmental health licensing or the fire service in with ourselves. But so what we're able to do through our partnering with Slough, we had people that could give advice on licensing and environmental health, and we've now partnered up with East Sussex Fire and Rescue, and they are able to offer advice and primary authority for the fire service. And that's really core, I think, is about not only providing capacity within trading standards, but then offering out a greater range of regulatory services. So I think what we're trying to portray in all of that was that professional image. I've just put up there history, challenges and the future. So it has had challenges, COVID for one. I think we had a marketing plan that was due to go live in March 2020 to really promote the existence of the partnership with businesses around the southeast, and particularly through our own authorities. But that has had to be paused really, as we had other priorities that took away our resources. But we're going to be revisiting that soon, and hopefully what we're going to try and do is really up our engagement with businesses, and through the use of the branding, we've been able to broaden that branding beyond just BASP. So there's now a Sussex Business Excellence Forum that has the similar branding and the promotion, just to really make sure that the message out there that we're not only open for business, but we're positively looking to support businesses as they go forward. And with the model that we've got the resources between the authorities to deliver. But I think going forward, we'll be looking to extend our membership offer so that other authorities can also come on board and market their business advice model using the same branding, and we're really keen on doing that. So I keep on mentioning branding because I think what we've tried to do is move away from what is a typical local authority officer offer, and the brief to the branding people that we got was really to provide that professional image that did give people reassurance that it was the regulators giving advice, but at the same time that we knew what we were talking about, and we knew that we could be able to give advice confidently and competently, and that's why we've developed the branding we have. So you know, there are challenges, and as everyone that works in a local authority knows, that fluctuating budgets and specialists leaving or moving authorities always gives a risk to that continued competence. And I think the strength we found in having multiple local authorities in the partnership is that you can cope with that more confidently with a larger availability of workforce to deliver under the one brand of the partnership. And so just next couple of slides, our sort of main front door, this is one slide, and the next one, thank you, Nicole, is just showing a bit of our website in terms of following the branding through that we've got. But that's the main access point to this service, and the contact points are there that feed into us in East Sussex, and then we have a process by which we evaluate which authority has the capacity and the competence to deal with the inquiry, and then we follow it through internally and provide that service. So hopefully that's whetted your appetite at least to consider some partnering around particularly business advice. And the next slide is the final tech challenge for Nicole. This is something one of our apprentices developed in terms of marketing BASP, and it's just, I think what we've learned is people deal visually now, so they don't like big brochures, although we have got a brochure, that actually a short video clip just to give people confidence to contact us for advice is good. So Nicole, play away, please.
Did you know that Trading Standards can help support and advise your business? We are part of the regulatory partnership BASP, which shares expert knowledge across trading standards, fire and rescue, licensing and environmental health. This is to ensure you are always receiving the best support and advice. We offer this service across the whole of East Sussex, so whatever the business, size or location, there is something to benefit you. Our services include assured business advice, bespoke training and a primary authority partnership. Basically, we understand compliance is overwhelming and we want to help. To find out more and speak to one of our friendly officers, you can call or email us. Our phone number is 0345 6080197 or email us at basp@eastsussex.gov.uk.
Okay, so thank you. That's my 10 minutes up. Sorry, I've got to go, but Caroline Clark, who was instrumental in some of the work behind it, who now works for Ops, she's going to be around and answer any technical questions you may have at the end of the session. But thank you very much for your time. Please do contact me if you're interested in hearing anything more about BASP. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. And we'll circulate I think the slides have already been circulated with everybody, but we will circulate them again after and make sure all the contact details are really clear. So if you do have any questions for Richard that Caroline can't answer or you think about after the session, I'm sure he's more than happy to answer those for you. So thank you, Richard. So we'll move straight on now to Lisa, who is going to be talking about CPD and 5+1 training.
I'll try and share my screen. I hope everybody can see them.
See that, Lisa, thank you.
Perfect. So hi everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak at the event today. My name's Lisa Bushell and I work for East Midlands Councils based in Melton Mowbray. I'm sure there's a few of you who are watching this that actually know me, but I'm usually hiding in the background, so it feels a little bit strange being on full show today. I thought it'd be helpful if I gave you a brief overview and some background to the environmental health CPD events that East Midlands Councils run. I thought first of all it might be worth me just telling you a little bit about East Midlands Councils. So we're a small dedicated team focusing on programmes and services that save councils money. Our services are driven by councils' requests and requirements. East Midlands Councils also establish and maintain an effective relationship with the National LGA. We influence government strategies, for example, proposals for the high-speed rail, and we also provide the governance of the East Midlands Strategic Migration Partnership, which is funded by the Home Office. We are a not-for-profit organisation and we design our own products and services around self-financing models. We are funded by, we receive subscriptions from all the councils who are in the East Midlands region for the provision of core employer services, and we also generate income from our portfolio of products and services for which our subscribing councils receive a discounted member rate. These services include learning and development events such as employment law updates, ILM programmes, report writing, plus the low-cost CPD event I'm going to talk about, which we run for environmental health officers, but we also run the same programme for planners as well. We also run an IT network and coaching network that authorities can subscribe to. So about the 5+1 CPD events and how it all started really. So back in around 2005, EMC were awarded some capacity build funding. With this funding, we enabled a new qualification in food hygiene to be provided through Nottingham Trent University. This was recognised as a skills shortage, which impacted on capacity, and there was no existing provision in the region. We also developed a skills pathway to promote transferring into the profession, and we also used the funding to set up the low-cost CPD programme that was actually based on the Welsh six-pack model, with initial joint funding from, at the time, CIEH. So EMC set up a pilot project within the area of environmental health with help from a focus group of environmental health managers. One of the outcomes of that meeting was to provide a regional seminar which took place in April 2008, and it was called Resourcing the Future in Environmental Health. The focus group attended each county environmental health group meetings to try and get some buy-in from all the local authorities. So from that original seminar, local authorities expressed a willingness to work closer with CIH East Midlands, and they expressed an interest in sharing training and accessing cheaper CPD. So as a direct response, the 5+1 for environmental health was launched on the 23rd of April 2009 with a food and healthy eating event. So what about the name? So quite simply, the name reflects the 5 county areas of the East Midlands, and the +1 is the UK Health Security Agency, who run one event, and they took over from the CIEH involvement about 3 years ago. So the name is based around the Welsh 6-pack model, but we didn't want to copy the name, so we went with 5+1, which is 5+1 is 6 events in total, so it's quite simple really. As mentioned, we have a focus group which is made up of 1 representative per county area, plus the UK Health Security Agency, and the focus group meet about 4 times a year. And as a group, we put together the programme for the year, taking into account any suggestions that are made through a SurveyMonkey questionnaire that's sent out to delegates after each event. So each county representative leads on a particular programme and contacts the potential speakers, and they also chair the event. But before I go any further, I want to give a big shout out to the focus group members, which is Ed Cook, Alan Batty, Tony Gray, Jenny Muggleson, Victoria Clark and Rob Johnston, as without them this programme would not be possible. And also not forgetting Caroline Harbour, who was on our focus group but has recently stepped down from the role. So I thought it'd be helpful just to share what some of the key benefits are for participants. So there are many advantages for organisations signed up to the programme. It's extremely cost effective. We charge £575 a year, and it also provides an opportunity to share learning and experience, particularly when the content is developed and often delivered by colleagues within the profession. In non-COVID times, it was great to have the opportunity to network with colleagues, and participants also receive CPD certificates after each event. And authorities can sign up as many colleagues within their organisations as they wish to attend each webinar. I thought it'd be useful to sort of say how the events have changed, because obviously they were face-to-face before COVID. So since COVID, so I think to start with, I think I buried my head in the sand a little bit and just thought the events wouldn't be able to run, but it obviously soon became clear that we could try and run them virtually. So after a discussion with the focus group, we came up with a plan and decided to run sessions lasting approximately 2 hours. We also decided not to limit numbers. So face-to-face events used to have 3 delegates per authority each event. But for the online model, we decided that there was no reason why we couldn't just let as many people as possible from each authority attend. So that's what we did, and we also record the sessions as well. So if people can't attend, they can see a copy of the recording and then get their CPD certificate afterwards. So our record number of delegates attended a webinar recently hosted by the UK Health Security Agency, and that was 220. So that was a really good turnout. So looking ahead, we will continue with the virtual sessions, but we are planning to try and hold a full day face-to-face session in June, which will be nice to catch up with colleagues and hopefully enjoy a nice buffet. The last couple of years have certainly been a learning curve, but hopefully the programme will continue to be popular going forward. And that's my, sorry, it's a bit quick, but that's my presentation. If anybody's got any questions later, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Lisa. I think the buffet point is fantastic. I mean, I don't go to training just for a buffet, but if there is one, it's an added bonus. So there's the comments in the chat, Lisa. So I don't know whether you want to just have a quick look through the chat while we move on to the next speaker, and then we'll count questions. Fantastic. Yeah. So we're now going to hear from Nick Reddrop about the Centre of Excellence. I am going to share your slides, provided.
Can I share my slides?
Oh, yeah, you want to share, Nick? That takes the pressure off me then. So yeah, happy for you to share your own slides.
Can you see them? Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I think do I have 7.5 minutes, or have I got a bit longer than that because you've had a couple of speakers drop out?
You've got a little bit longer now, Nick.
Great. I'll take my time then. Yeah, so my name's Nick Redrop. I'm the Better Business for All coordinator and stroke Greater Manchester Regulatory Centre of Excellence Programme Manager, which is a self-imposed title, I think. I was originally employed as a Better Business for All coordinator for the Greater Manchester Regulatory Centre of Excellence. So that is the 10 local authorities and the fire service coming together to provide regulatory advice and support to businesses throughout Greater Manchester and beyond. And it's essentially how we adopt and implement Better Business for All and Primary Authority across Greater Manchester. So our focus has very much been on Primary Authority, combining the expertise of our 11 constituent authorities. And basically all Primary Authority inquiries are set up and managed by me through the Centre of Excellence. So how did we get to this point? We've always had quite a strong history of collaboration in Greater Manchester, and the steering group wanted to be part of the steering group that's made up of our public protection managers, public protection partnership, wanted to be part of the Better Business for All programme, and also to formalise their sort of primary authority offer across Greater Manchester. So as I say, they came together to form the Better Business for All steering group, which was made up of the 11 authorities and the Growth Hub and the Federation of Small Business. And they launched, they produced a launch event in November 2017, which was very much launching Primary Authority. And I will mention Janet Russell and Caroline Clark, because they were integral in sort of being involved from the outset and setting it up. If you like, I think, Caroline, if you were like the birth mother of the Centre of Excellence, and Janet, you were like the foster carer, and then I'm like the adoptive father, I think is a good metaphor to use, hopefully. So the launch event was in November 2017, and then I was appointed in 2018. And it's funded by the sort of 11 authorities. And what the 11 authorities have done over the years is pay into a public protection partnerships pot for a sort of an innovative solution to something, and that's what paid for my post in the first year. So in terms of our successes, we've got 42 Primary Authority business partners at this moment in time. We projected to deliver about 1,000 hours of advice this year, and have generated over £200,000 since 2018. And we've been sort of awarded and nominated for various awards as well over the years. So I guess this is our successes really, our business partners, businesses big and small in Greater Manchester and beyond those boundaries. Excuse me. In terms of our Better Business for All work, it is the everyday help and support offered to businesses by our regulators. Workshops that we've delivered in conjunction with the Business Growth Hub. So they've got a Recipe for Success workshop, a cohort programme, where we've provided input into food hygiene and food labelling workshops. We've also done some standalone stuff on consumer rights. Pre-pandemic in-person events on fire safety, developing a distillery, becoming a brewer. And then during the pandemic, we produced a series of short reopening safely videos for our businesses in Greater Manchester, and then most recently provided a bit of an update on the Tasha's Law and an allergen workshop for businesses, which was really well attended and was recorded for availability for businesses afterwards. So just touching on sort of how it works in practice. So a business will come to us through a local authority referral, through the Growth Hub, or perhaps by a direct referral from another business that's recommended us. And then it's my role to match that business to an advising local authority. And we'll do that primarily based on location. So we'll try and match the business with the local authority in which they're based. or on business requests. So if a business requests a partnership with a particular local authority, we'll try and accommodate that where possible, and then taking into account sort of expertise and capacity as well in those local authorities. I guess the idea has always been that no Greater Manchester business will have to look outside of Greater Manchester for primary authority services. And then I'm involved in initial meetings with the business and the local authority, drawing up the arrangements and invoice arrangements, updating the primary authority register, and then day to day there's direct contact between the business and the local authority. And then I'm involved in providing an update on the hours to the business, on how many hours they're using, end of year reviews and quarterly reviews as well. And that's been crucial in sort of increasing the productivity of our partnerships over the last couple of years. So why does it work? It works because we've got that good history of a good relationship in Greater Manchester. We've got really knowledgeable officers with good business relationships. As I mentioned, those annual and quarterly reviews and work plans have really helped the productivity of our partnerships. Learning from our mistakes. So I think in the early days when I just got the job, we took on some businesses that perhaps weren't quite ready for primary authority. I mean, I was just trying to sort of stay in a job at that point. But I think as we've gone on, we recognise that actually some businesses aren't ready for primary authority, and that's not the best option for them. It also works because of networks like this and being able to borrow or steal ideas from other local authorities on how they're operating their primary authority partnerships or their business Better Business for All networks. Pre-pandemic, we had really strong links with the Business Growth Hub. I was based there one day a week, and that was really useful for referrals and getting to know their advisors. During the pandemic, that has dropped off a little bit, and it's something we're keen to reinvigorate. And I do think for me that the combined sort of Better Business for All coordinator and primary authority lead does really work, because it allows me to sort of focus on the work that our regulatory officers haven't got time to do, like chasing businesses and the administration associated with primary authority, and allows them to focus on the most important part, which is providing the advice and support to our businesses. And it also allows us to sort of combine the really tangible results that we get from primary authority, around number of hours delivered and income generated, with some of the sometimes less tangible Better Business for All work in providing free advice and support to businesses. In terms of the future for us, businesses are approaching us rather than the other way around, but I think it's fair to say we're probably starting to generate more work than we can deliver, and it's certainly something, the presentations here today, particularly about apprenticeships and things like that, is something we're interested in finding a little bit more about, because we are keen to follow that BASP model, I think, to provide some, as well as primary authority, to provide some chargeable advice as well, and support across Greater Manchester. So harmonising our pricing across the LAs is crucial to that. And then we've talked about a business compliance, Greater Manchester Business Compliance website, developing that, and then we're focusing at the moment on sort of reinvigorating our Better Business for All groups, so bringing together not just our regulators and Growth Hub and FSB, but our Chamber of Commerce and our economic development teams to try and see what projects businesses want and what we can deliver to them. So that's it. That's everything from me. Happy to answer any questions if anyone's got any.
Thanks, Nick. So there's a couple of questions in the chat, but if we go to our next speaker first, and then we'll come back to the questions, you're welcome to go in and answer those. Particularly like your point, Nick, about BBFA and PA kind of being you're kind of both the head for both of them, and it aligns them. One of the things I keep harping on about is entwining Better Business for All and primary authority a bit more than we have in the past. So I think the Centre of Excellence is a great example of that work in practice. So thank you. So our next speaker is Paul Brooks. He is going to be talking a little bit about apprenticeships. So if I just get the slides and skip ahead. I'm not very technically savvy, it doesn't seem. Oh, sorry, bear with. I'm sure there's a quicker way to do that. There you go. So I'll hand over to you, Paul.
Cheers, Nicole. The only quicker way would have got me to do it, and that would have taken a long time. So, right, good morning, everybody. I'm going to talk to you about how we're using apprenticeships to help with recruiting environmental health officers. But the model is not unique to environmental health and should be transferable to any public sector profession. Myself, I'm an environmental health practitioner and head of service at Chelmsford City Council, which is a district council in Essex. Next slide, please, Nicole. Right, so the issue we have, and we've had for a number of years, is difficulty in recruiting environmental health officers. So environmental health officers need to be degree qualified, and it's a profession where I think there's a national shortage, but we have a particular problem because we're so close to London. So it's 30 minutes on train to the centre of London, probably 15 minutes drive to those London authorities that are on the outer edge. And those London authorities will pay between £7,000 and £12,000 more than what we can pay for environmental health officers. So we do lose a fair proportion to those London authorities. Sometimes we get a few back when they realise that working in London isn't all that it cracks up to be. The money might be nice, but I don't think necessarily the working conditions are that favourable. Within the service, we have 45 staff delivering environmental health, community safety, CCTV and licensing. And key to that service delivery are the 10 environmental health officers we have that make up the service. And included in that 10 are 3 senior managers and 3 team leaders. So that leaves 4 pure frontline environmental health officers. So any vacancy has significant impact on service delivery. There's also a perception by many non-environmental health officers that they're doing the same work for less pay. And whilst between 50 to 80% of work other non-environmental health officers are doing is very similar, it's the 20-30% that we need the environmental health officers for. So these are where we need to be serving prohibition notices that with the more complex enforcement cases, that's the skill that we need, and that's why we need environmental health officers in post. Now, the default option for EHO vacancies is agency staff, which is great, but that comes with problems, quite significant problems. An EHO costs us £48,000 per annum with on costs. Agency staff are approximately £80,000 per annum, and for that kind of money, we'd expect someone to hit the ground running. But all too often, agency staff come with their own issues that need sorting, or they might have embellished their CV and that they can't do the work we're asking of them. So it's quite often that we'd have agency staff in, but we'd either have to sort those issues out or change the agency staff, and both which impact on their effectiveness and efficiency. So agency staff have their uses, but they're not a solution to the challenge we have. Next slide, please, Nicole. So we came up with a proposed solution, which was to develop our own staff. So we offered all the staff, so all 45 staff, irrespective of their role, the opportunity to qualify as an environmental health officer. This was either through a level 6 apprenticeship, which is a degree level apprenticeship, a BSc honours degree or master's degree, depending on what their existing qualifications were. Now, we had quite a large underspend in our staffing budget of £80,000, which I thought was just quite simple. Why don't we use that underspend, carry it forward to try and help us develop our staff and use it? But when I spoke to accountants, it wasn't that simple. It never is. So we weren't allowed to carry forward the underspend, but they did accept the business case that £80,000 per agency worker is not cost effective or sustainable. And when we were developing this proposal, we also wanted to utilise the apprenticeship levy. So all organisations with an annual wage bill of more than £3 million have to pay 0.5% per annum into the levy, which is ring fenced and can only be spent on the cost of the apprenticeships. But that doesn't include the salary. You can't use a levy to pay the salary of the apprentice, but you can use a levy for the training costs. And the training cost for level 6 apprenticeship is about £9,000 a year. So the training cost is quite significant. Now at Chelmsford, we average a balance of about £200,000 in our apprenticeship levy. And like most large organisations, we actually struggle to spend the levy because it's got such strict parameters on what it can be spent on. So not only is accessing the levy not a problem, it's actually quite a cost-effective way of increasing the workforce in the face of significant budget pressures, because actually it's welcome that you're actually accessing that levy and spending it, because if the organisation doesn't spend it, at some point it just goes back to central government. Next slide, please, Nicole. So what was the result? Well, the first result was that we devised this January 2020, so COVID hit. So this was sort of paused whilst we had to deal with the pandemic. But last summer we sort of got back to looking at this and started it again. So after the initial invite went out to staff, we had 8 staff showing interest. To try and I suppose see what level of commitment we had, we actually asked them to go out to find the training provider, speak to the training provider, see what their qualifications, what route they'd have to do, whether it's apprenticeship, the BSc honours or the MSc. So after they went through that, 5 staff committed to the training, and we've had 1 member of staff start last September, so September 2021 on the apprenticeship. We've got another 2 starting this September, and then 2 are planned to start in 2023. And then the plan is that after that 2023, we will then get more staff on, and we'll try and start 1 or 2 people every year and have this pipeline of staff that are going to be en route to qualification. Now, the £80,000 underspend we wanted to use, we couldn't, but the accountants did come up with a solution. I don't know if everybody has this, they probably don't. We have a vacancy factor in our staffing budget. So there's an assumption that a percentage of posts are going to be vacant for part of the year. So we have a 3% vacancy factor. So whatever the staffing budget is, 3% is assumed not to be spent. So that vacancy factor for our service has been increased to 4%, and then we get that 1% back. So it's I don't know why we just couldn't carry forward the 80,000, but this is an accounting formula to give us that money. So it equates to £15,000 a year that we can use to assist with us implementing this programme. Now, I think what was interesting was that the opportunity to qualify as environmental health officer has really helped us to deal with the perception that staff are doing similar work for less pay. So even those that haven't shown an interest in qualifying, the chatter and the noise on doing the same work has died down. I think this is probably due to perceived fairness, in that people recognise that they've got the same opportunity even if they don't want it. So we've got a happier workforce, even from those that aren't partaking in it. Now, due to the time to qualify, we'll always choose the quickest qualification route for the individual. So if they're able to access the degree course, we will put them on that because that's 3 years. The Masters is 18 months, yet the criteria for accessing that are quite specific. But if somebody can access that, they would. And if people can't access those courses, then we'll go through the apprenticeship. The advantage with the apprenticeship is we can use a levy to pay for the training fees. The disadvantage is the length of time. It takes 5 years for the apprenticeship, 3 years for the BSc degree, and say 18 months for the MSc. But for a lot of our staff, they don't have the qualifications to access a degree course. So the apprenticeship it's more equitable. Everyone, if they've got the right attitude, can actually go on and qualify as an environmental health officer. So it's important for succession planning this. Although it's a long time, 5 years, we've got an ageing workforce. And if we look at succession planning, actually, we need to do something now. Otherwise, in 5 years' time, we're going to be in significant trouble with trying to get a qualified workforce. The one issue we've found, the one challenge we've got, is covering the work of those undergoing training, because we're taking them out of their day job for significant periods of time for a number of years. So we're trying to backfill those with other apprenticeships. So the person who's currently doing the apprenticeship works in licensing. So we've got a licensing apprentice in to backfill that role, and we're using the levy for that. Next slide, please, Nicole. So finally, I just want to leave you with this quote. So this is from Lacey, who is the licensing officer that's undergoing the apprenticeship, and she started level 6 apprenticeship last September. Now, Lacey joined the council 4 years ago as a trainee licensing officer. Not straight from school, but not far off. She was 18, 19 when she joined us. And when you're dealing with budgets and staffing, you can sometimes forget the personal impact your decisions can make. And this quote from me reminded me that the development of our staff is more than just dealing with a recruitment issue, that it makes real significant positive impact on people's lives. And I think that's probably a reason why we should be looking to use these apprenticeships to really make a difference to people's lives. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. So that's all of our speakers now. So we'll open up for Q&A. I've got a couple of questions in the chat for Nick. So if I come to Nick first and go through those questions, if anyone wants to raise their hand to ask Lisa, Nick or Paul a question, you're more than welcome to, or just pop them in the chat. So Nick, how has the downward pressure on staff numbers, especially in trading standards, impact your ability to deliver primary authority across the, now I should know how to say this word, but I don't, conurbation?
Yeah.
I'll pretend I've said that right.
Yeah, it's a really good capacity. I mentioned capacity in the presentation, and it is a real challenge. It has been a real challenge, not just across training standards, but environmental health and fire safety partnerships as well. And we have focused on taking on partnerships where we can add real value to the business. I think it continues to be a challenge, and particularly in COVID times, hopefully things might start to get a bit easier. But you know, that's why I was interested in what Paul was saying there. But obviously that's not a short-term fix. So in terms of taking on new partnerships, we've had to be really careful about what we've been able to take on over the last sort of 12 to 18 months.
Thanks. And were you involved in the Natasha's Law Q&A document, which was really great for us to use?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, well, it's good to hear. We did, and I can't take any credit for it. It was an environmental health officer and a training standards officer, two of our councils who were really heavily involved in that, and with some support from other officers. So although I sort of put it together from some of the questions we'd had from our delegates at the webinar, it was them who answered them. So credit to them.
And one more for you, Nick. Has the Mayor's Office taken any interest in what you're doing with Centre of Excellence? Yeah,
we did meet with someone at the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, and they were putting together some a policy or strategy on something. I can't. I mean, I should remember, but I can't remember what it was. That was pre-pandemic, and we haven't actually provided them an update to the sort of wider leadership team in Greater Manchester. So that is something we need to do once we agree on sort of the future of the programme.
Right, thanks, Nick. And I've got a couple of questions for Paul as well. So, Paul, do they sign a learner's agreement where they would pay the cost of studying back if they leave environmental health within a certain period of time?
Thanks for that, Michelle. I saw that comment. I thought, yeah, that's something I forgot to put in the presentation. Yes, they do sign a learning agreement. The learning agreement we used to have was that they had to stay within a local authority for 2 years, but it didn't matter which local authority. Those were the good old days. We've amended that. So yes, if they have to stay with Chelmsford City Council for 2 years after qualifying, if there is an environmental health officer vacancy for them to take. So if what we've said to staff is that we anticipate that most of the people we train will be able to slot into a vacancy, because we'll know, you know, if we have a vacancy 12 months before they qualify, we'll just hold that vacancy open and use agency staff. But yeah, we're just asking them for 2 years, which we think is fair enough. We don't want to hold people here any longer if they don't want to be with us. And what we found when we used to do a student sponsorship program, it is surprising how many people do stay with you. And certainly I've got EHOs with me that we trained as students, and they do stay. So it's not like we're going to train people and they're all going to go to London, because not everybody wants that. But I think it's quite important that we've got to have something back from here. We just don't want to be the trainer and then other local authorities benefit from that. But good question, Michelle. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. And I think that's answered Ruth's question about how you keep them and about having vacant EH posts. So you've answered both in one go. So thank you.
What I would say, Nicole, also is that there's a huge advantage whilst they're training, because during their training they become much more useful to you as an employer, because as they become trained up. So it's not at the point of qualification they become useful. I think on a 5-year apprenticeship, you're looking probably the start of year 2, maybe 2.5 years in, then actually you'll start using that person as giving them more complex work. So they actually become much more beneficial to you. All we've got to try and figure out is how we do this backfilling of posts, because that's the problem, but we'll resolve that. That's quite a nice problem to have.
Thanks, Paul. So there's no more questions for any of our speakers. So thank you to our 4 fantastic speakers. As I said at the start, the slides will be going out with contact details in, so I'm sure they're all more than happy to be contacted by you if you do think of any more questions. But we also have Jane and Janet contacting various local authorities. So if you do think of anything that you think could feed into this kind of collaborative approaches, resilience of the workforce piece of work that we're doing, please do contact either of them. As Janet has put in the chat, Janet is doing the North and the Midlands, and then Jane is doing everywhere else. But if you contact us, we can point you in the right direction if you're not sure who to contact anyway. So with that, I will bring this session to a close. The recording will be available probably 2-ish weeks. We have to send it to our internal comms team to get